This might be too advanced for you, but your biomarkers and your biometrics hold the key to becoming Bradley Cooper in Limitless and unlocking levels of flow and peak performance in your life that you've never experienced before. What I'm going to show you in this quick video is exactly the biomarkers that you need to look at for each of the 11 systems inside of your body and biology, how to test it, and what exactly to do about it. This is the fastest shortcut that I know to unlocking these level of flow states. Let's get into it.
Okay, the hidden biomarkers that you are overlooking. This is a comprehensive guide to unlock your inner machinery for peak performance and flow. So what you would need to understand is you can access this guide specifically down in the comments down below. There'll be a specific link where you can download this for yourself and look at all of it. The value of this is easily over $500. This is everything I've accumulated over the last 10 years. I'm going to record a video here and give you extra bits of information that I do not include inside of this that you can use as well in the shortcuts and where to get, different testing where and what to look at specifically for yourself. So what you need to understand, I'm not going to read all of this, but just quickly, everyone's biology is specifically unique. You have a different biology than even your siblings, than your parents, than everything else. And this revolves around genetics. So our nature, and then also our environment, which is our nurture. Scientists say it's about a 50-50 split with each one. They've done studies on genetic identical twins, and what they've shown is exact same genetics, but with a different environment, this can change the biochemistry of how they feel over time. And we've talked about different stress buckets before. Basically, just what you need to know is everyone is entirely unique, and that's why you cannot have a cookie cutter approach, just like you hear in different, what influencers might tell you, what your, someone from the health food store might tell you. You have to buy this supplement or this supplement. It works for everybody. That's not true. Everybody has a unique biological code, and we need a specific sequence of trying to unlock what that is. And once you find out what that biological code is for you, and especially when you do the lab testing, you can unlock that a lot sooner and easier. You can see the exact roadmap that you need to unlock these states of peak performance and flow. And so how we do that is a lot of different ways. One of the biggest ones, though, is we want to find out different areas of our biology. We have our brain neurotransmitters, we have brain waves, we have our thyroid gland, we have genetics, we have 11 different systems inside of our body. We have our mind, the subconscious mind, which runs a lot of our conscious behaviors. We have our detoxification system. We have our digestive system. We have our cardiovascular system. We have, our body's ability to detoxify. We have just all these systems that are happening at once. And if there is a cog in a machine, we have to think about it like a car. So like a car, how it runs, if a car is running more efficiently, it is going to burn less fuel. It's just going to operate more smoothly. And you are going to just not have to probably pay for a mechanic bill as expensive if it's maintained well. And it's just, it's not going to take as much to run that vehicle compared to if you were to think of a 1980s Toyota Corolla, that is going to be a lot more, gas heavy, is not as efficient, assuming that you didn't take care of it as much. Those are great cars, by the way. But if you did not take, good care of that car, or any car for that matter, it's going to burn through gas a lot more quickly. And our bodies are a lot of the same way. Our bodies, there's all these different systems, and you can think of to zoom into our bodies, there's all these gears that are running. The first thing is those gears have to spin fast enough. So everything has to be working as it should. But the other part is those gears have to be working in synchronicity with each other. So the systems that are happening in your brain have to work well. The systems that are happening within your digestive system, within your detoxification system, within your heart, within your hormones, your brain neurotransmitters, with your thyroid gland, how it's communicating with your testes or your ovaries. There's so much that's happening at once, and people don't necessarily look at that. The conventional medical system is great. When you go to a doctor, they are going to tell you, you go to your general practitioner, they'll send you to a specialist. Those specialists are only going to look at things through their lens. So if they specialize in hormones, they're going to look at hormones. If they specialize in the brain, they're going to look at the brain. If they specialize in the gut, they're going to look at the gut. But do you ever see them communicating with each other of how all these things connect? That's where the secret key is. It's not just in that one thing. It's not just a hormone injection. It's not, taking a pill to help with your brain to focus better. Everything is related to each other. For example, the gut is also known as our second brain. It's known as the enteric nervous system. This is where we have a lot of brain nutrients come from? For example, if we have anxiety, if we feel like we're depressed or we're sad, that's really serotonin. That's a big factor. There's other things that are involved with it, but just for the sake of simplicity, serotonin is kind of our happy, feel-good neurotransmitter. A good portion of that is inside of our gut. Where do we get serotonin from? Well, that comes from its precursor, tryptophan, and that comes from food. Well, when we eat food, it goes into our system. That has to break down. Well, if it's not breaking down properly, because we potentially have parasites, we have worms, we have viruses, we have pathogens, potentially leaky gut, or we don't have the enzymes to break it down or the acids to break that food down, it's possible that those parasites could steal the food, the nutrients from that food. And as a result, even if we're eating a healthy diet, we will not have the building blocks for that serotonin for our brain. So some people think it's an antidepressant issue. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take antidepressants, but I'm just making the point. Some people think it's an antidepressant issue. They need to take more antidepressants, and it's a antidepressant deficiency why they need to feel better. But the truth is this. You can supplement with 5-HTP for serotonin. Again, check with your doctor. But what if we could do that naturally? We don't have to rely on crutches, because if our digestion is working okay, we can break down the foods that's needed for serotonin to occur. We're not having these evil little critters that are taking those nutrients. We're having everything break down properly. And then we're also having the right assimilation of those nutrients where it can transport from our gut up to our brain for our brain to use for us to feel good and to feel functional, to reach these states of peak performance and flow. Now, that's just one example. There's so many other different things with our brain neurotransmitters in different areas of our body to feel great at all times. And so that's why when we look at all this, we really have to look at it from a symptom versus the root cause model. And what I'm going to do here is just zoom in a little bit so I can show you guys what this is all about. So what we can see here is, think of a tree. Think about the symptoms. A lot of people, especially within conventional medicine, they focus on the symptoms. How do we remove the symptoms? I have pain. I'm going to take a painkiller. I feel sad. I'm going to take an antidepressant. I can't focus. I'm going to take a stimulant like Adderall, Wellbutrin, Vyvanse, something like that. But what if we went upstream to find out where is that actually happening from? What about if we got to the root cause and we looked at the roots of why that was actually happening? Well, if you got to the root cause, those symptoms wouldn't manifest themselves in the first place. So how I like to look at symptoms is something that's happening downstream, that it's a leading indicator that we have to look upstream for what's happening. We have to go down to the roots of your tree to find out what is working. And once we have that intel, now we want to take an approach that's not this cookie cutter machine gun auto fire, trying to take all these supplements, trying to throw things at the wall and hoping that something sticks. Once we test and we know exactly what our biological code is, we can take a precise sniper-like approach and only do exactly what our biology needs. And what the result of that is not only do you feel good faster and get better faster, but you save money over the long term because you only take what you actually need. You only take the essentials and nothing more. And once you find that out, you'll have that intel for the rest of your life. So that's why what I just want to show you here is the upstream analogy. So it's kind of like the roots, but when we look downstream, we're always looking at the symptoms. We want to go upstream into your biology. What is the root cause? Where is all this coming from? And it's just like a leaking bucket. If you're holding a bucket full of water and you see a hole that's inside of it, you are going to want to plug the hole directly where that leak is, which is the root cause. That's the root cause where that leak is coming from. You don't want to catch that water down below on the ground and just put another bucket down there to try and catch the water, because in that way you would be addressing the symptoms. You want to get to that root cause, and it's just a lot more efficient for you overall. So here are some of the lab tests that you really want to look at. Again, there is a lot of details to these, but pay really close attention. Check out the link down below. And if you want to book an assessment with me and we can dive into what these specific biomarkers you might be interested in, let me know and we can find out a specific roadmap for you. So here's a couple different things. First is blood testing biomarkers that we want to look at. I won't say every specific one, but typically what we're going to want to look at is, in terms of getting our blood, this is for males only, is total testosterone, free testosterone, estradiol, SHGB, progesterone, prolactin, and cortisol. These are very big ones for males in particular. Every age after the age of 30 for males, our testosterone goes down by 1%. Over the years since the 1960s, our testosterone levels have significantly decreased. someone who is considered normal testosterone today, let's say a healthy 30-year-old, would be probably considered low testosterone in the 1960s, the 1970s, and probably the 1980s for that matter. Every decade, this number gets lower and lower. The reason for that is because every single decade, what they do is, or every single year, they take what is the mass population's average blood test. Well, what happens if the mass population is consuming a lot of plastic phthalates, stuff that is going to naturally lower testosterone, other things that are inside of the water, such as, estrogenic metabolites and different things. And this is a conversation for another time, but there's a lot of things in our environment today that are considered healthy and okay, that is slowly lowering the overall testosterone for the male population, which is not good. So there's a lot of things we can do about that, but I can't tell you the amount of times that I see low testosterone with males, and that's why they can't focus. They don't have energy. They can't put on muscle. They feel stressed all the time, and they can't figure out why. Meanwhile, it feels like there's these other males that are just, putting on muscle easily. They're killing it at life. They're clear-minded all the time. They have high motivation. We can't figure out why. Hormones is definitely could be a piece, but there's many other things that are happening too. Next is thyroid. A lot of the time, conventional doctors will only look at TSH. And we'll come back normal, but we want to look at under the hood even more. T3, T4, TPO antibodies, thyroglobulin antibodies, reverse T3. These are really good ones. Vitamins in general, vitamin D, B12, B9, like folic acid, and magnesium are very good. Also, inflammation markers. We want to look at C-reactive protein is also very important. These are the primary blood markers that I like to look at. Again, it's different case by case for everyone, but I'm just saying in general, that's typically what I like to see. Next ones that are secondary is gonadotropins. So this is LH, FSH. We can also look at neurosteroids. So pregnenolone is a big one, and DHEAS. These are building blocks for anabolic hormones to build up, to help heal our body, to build brain neurogenesis, new brain cells. It really helps bring our body up. So we want to make sure those are okay. Insulin growth factor, insulin-like growth factor 1, it's also known as IGF-1, important for building muscles and other things like this. And these secondary ones have sometimes more to do with disease risk down the road for longevity. They can definitely still affect our short-term performance, but these are other things that we just want to screen for just in case. I'm not going to go into all these, but ApoB, total cholesterol, triglycerides, things we typically want to see. We also want to look at, total blood count. That's also important. We also want to see a comprehensive metabolic profile. These are also things, seeing if we have any micronutrient deficiencies. You would be surprised how many people are deficient in micronutrients. One I saw recently was selenium. They were deficient in selenium, and as a result of that, their thyroid wasn't functioning as well as it should. And I believe Tim Ferriss had a similar case of that, where he was deficient in selenium, started supplementing with it, and boom, his, I believe it was hypothyroid he had at the time, it went back into the normal range. His energy came back and he was just back up online, which is amazing. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it is one thing for some people. A lot of the time, no, it's 5% of this, 15% of this, 8% of this. It's kind of all mixed together. Next is liver function. We want to see kidney function. Iron's important, heart health, potential tumor, urinalysis, all good. So in terms of blood, primary and secondary, those are some key ones that you want to look at. Again, check with your doctor with all of this stuff. The next one, though, is advanced lab testing. This is the form of lab testing that you do not see from a typical conventional doctor that will test for. This is more private medical healthcare, and this is going one step above and beyond what's currently available. And while this is sometimes a higher investment, you are going to pick up things with this form of testing that you probably would not see on any other forms of testing. I've had many people who have come to me and they've tested, for example, they'll do a gut test and with their conventional medical doctor, and everything came back negative. It looked okay. But what we will do is a very sensitive gut test, everything that looks at a DNA level, and we can see they come back with parasites, H. pylori, sometimes potentially worms, sometimes a lot of inflammation that's inside of their gut, and so much more. So a big thing is that a lot of these tests with the conventional medical doctors are meant for the mass population. As a result of that, the quality of those tests are not as high because the cost of those tests are not as high because they need it for the mass population. It's unfortunate. It's good to do for basic screenings for certain kinds of diseases and other things like that, and they do pick up things sometimes. But if you are somebody who's really looking to optimize and get to that 10 out of 10 peak performance state, you really have to take the next level and look at these forms of testing. So let's dive into it. The first is urine-based testing. These are kind of like organic acids. We can look at hormones, and we can also look at toxins and heavy metals inside of your body. You can get heavy metal from eating a lot of fish over time. You can get it from, just from the environment. And this can start literally when you're a baby, and literally showing when you are in the womb of your mother, and she can pass this stuff on to you. If you ever had, fillings, or maybe your mother had heavy metal fillings, this could have passed your way onto you, and it gets stored inside of our fat cells. And it can do a lot of damage for people, like autoimmune conditions and focus, brain fog, and they can't figure out why. There's a gentleman named Dr. Mark Hyman. He went to China one time, and he had very high mercury levels from all the coal that was being processed by the plants, or et cetera. And he was in his mid-30s. He was about to become a doctor, and he just could not function anymore. He was just extremely tired. This is on the extreme end, but what if your stress bucket is overflowing from these internal stressors that are coming from internal things in your body? Like heavy metals could be one, storing themselves inside of your fat cells. Sometimes for people, it's potentially inside of their brain, but also you could have things like mold. There's something known as mycotoxins. You could have different forms of, like glyphosate, like when you eat foods and all the spray from foods over time, if you're eating this stuff, that has to go somewhere. Some gets brought out of your body, but if your body is especially bad at detoxifying, and there could be a genetic factor for this too, there could be some things deeper going on there for you. So that's what you want to get tested. So again, I won't go into all these specifically, but fatty acid metabolism, we can look at carbohydrate metabolism. We can look at energy production, our body's ability to produce energy inside of our body, methylation, also our body's ability to detoxify. How about our brain neurotransmitters? So I talked about serotonin for happiness, feeling good. How about dopamine, which is focus? We have acetylcholine, which is kind of like memory. It's for, activating our muscles, a lot of physical performance. We have glutamate, and then we also have GABA, which is like the brakes on our brain. And brakes on our brain, meaning it helps us feel calm, relaxed, cool. It's kind of like whenever we drink alcohol and we feel that relaxed feeling, that is GABA neurotransmitter being activated there. And that is what is giving us that feeling when we have that, social, well-being. That is a big one that we can use. But what if we don't drink alcohol and get the negative effects from that? And we can actually do it naturally. And that's entirely possible. So brain neurotransmitters, detoxification is really important. This is coming from our liver. There's detoxification pathways 1 and 2. While we're sleeping, we have these garbage truck cleaners known as our lymphatic system. That come through our body. And if we do not have those running properly, a lot of these toxins can be built up inside of us. And if disease is a risk factor for you, something you're worried about, then a lot of, for example, Alzheimer's or other potential conditions is when a lot of these plaques can build up in our brain or inside of our body. If these garbage truck cleaners aren't doing their job properly, that's going to happen over time. Now, that's on a disease level and longevity, let alone how you feel. You're definitely going to be impacted on how you feel first before any of that stuff starts to happen. So keep that in mind. Also, oxalate-based foods, that's a big one. The next one we can look at is saliva-based testing. Saliva is very good because we can see our hormones. We have many controllers of our hormones. There's our adrenal glands. We have our hypothalamus and our pituitary gland inside of our brain. They're all running inside of one unique system with each other, and they're working, whether they're in overdrive or whether they are not working hard enough, or maybe it's right in the middle. But for most people, it's an overdrive, so much so over years, months, weeks, that they're consuming coffee all the time, lots of stimulants, and eventually their body just is not functioning. So this is the case. If you find yourself waking up in the morning, you need coffee, you feel like a walking zombie, or maybe you just don't feel like you have your focus dialed in or as much on point as you would like it to be, and you just don't feel as mentally sharp, there could be something hormonally going on there with your cortisol, your adrenaline, your DHES. It could be with different, these metabolites that you can have within your body that are causing this to happen. There's a big cascade of all these things, but what I want you to know is it could definitely be hormonally related when it comes with that. So some specific biomarkers, we want to test what our cortisol is, both free and metabolized. Waking, morning, night, and this one should be right before we go to bed. We also want to look at DHEA and DHEAS. estradiol, progesterone, testosterone metabolites as well. And then we also want to look at, organic based testing. We want to see our B vitamins, glutathione, indican. Sometimes we have a lot of candida buildup or like yeast growing inside of our gut. This can definitely give us sort of that high like feeling. We kind of feel like we're a drug sometimes, and we don't know why. This can definitely be related to either if we're having milk or if we're having there's a lot of yeast buildup inside, and the byproducts from it can kind of send a gas and a waste into our body, which makes its way to our brain, causing all this inflammation that we do not want. The last one is stool testing. Stool testing is really important because in our gut, we could potentially have parasites. We could potentially have pathogens. We could have bacteria. We could have worms inside. Any one of these things. How do we get them? A couple different things. A lot of people think it's when they go down to a second or third world country and they eat a food or they drink the water that's contaminated. Yes, that is true, but not always. You could even get it if you were swimming in your local lake or swimming in an ocean. You can even get it if you ate fish that was contaminated. Now, for some people, they will eat it and maybe not get infected because they have a built up, good immune system and everything else. For some people, though, they're not so lucky and it stays there, and it can stay there for decades. I've seen with people sometimes. And what happens is it can stay there and it covers itself with a shield known as a biofilm. What it does then is it's very difficult to get out of your system. There's specific ways to do it. And again, ask me how, sorry. But what you can do is with specific protocols, we can do that naturally. But what happens is they can bury themselves deep within your gut lining and they can steal the nutrients. They can cause you to get leaky gut where your intestinal barrier, it should be like this, sealed shut. And all the food that you eat, all the liquids in your body stay within there. But what happens over time if there's a lack of that integrity and now there's little holes that start to form inside of your gut right here? Well, what's going to happen then is any food that you eat, those undigested food particles are going to get through those little holes and go into your bloodstream. Now your immune system sounds the alarm bells and says, hey, we got an intruder here. We have to deal with it. Your immune system spikes up. These backup generators have to come online and really try and remove these internal fires when they just do not need to be there in the first place. And this can even be healthy food, by the way. If you have leaky gut and you're eating healthy food, you could have those food particles go into your bloodstream and build up a sensitivity and have that exact same reaction. So what are the foods that you are eating that could be causing this reaction for you, causing you to always be in this state of brain fog and not being entirely in your 10 out of 10 natural peak performance and flow state? So things we can look at here, we have our gut microbes. We have trillions of, gut bacteria. This can affect our metabolism, how we feel. This also is the building blocks for a lot of our brain neurotransmitters and our hormones, extremely important. We want to make sure there's more good bacteria than bad gut bacteria. But there's gut pathogens we can look at, regular bacteria, dysbiotic and overgrowth bacteria, viruses, parasites, worms. We could also look at what is our body's ability to digest proteins, to digest fat. What is the inflammation level like? What is most of our immune system is located inside of our gut. So is our immune system within our gut overreactive because there's too many internal fires? Or is it okay? Or is it not reactive enough? So it's hard for us to actually fight off some kind of infection. Always very important to look at. So ultimately what we want to do, again, we were just touching the surface here, but you want to have an approach that's customized and personalized to you. What that looks like is we want to go by Pareto's principle. We get 80% of the results with 20% of the effort. What are those 20% of things that we can do to get you the most results possible? I get it. You're probably busy. You're doing all these things. You don't have time. You think to change your lifestyle around everything else. The way we can minimize that and to save you time is by actually doing lab testing, figuring out what is going on under the hood of your biology. And by doing that, you can get better in the fastest way possible. If you would like somebody in your corner to help you with this, you can definitely reach out. Down below, I put a link where you can schedule a free assessment with me and we can look at all this. We can discuss it specifically for you to do it in the most efficient way possible so you can get better and fully optimized. In the meantime, you can also check out this exact guide that I created for you. Again, I'll put that down in the link below, or you can go to thesleepconsultant.com and there's a link directly at the top of the page that you can get this as well. I hope this was insightful for you. I had so much fun telling you all about this. It's really cutting edge science, and this is really scratching the surface of really what's to come that I'm going to share with you. There's so much more, and I'm so excited. But I hope this was helpful, and I wish you a good sleep tonight and a good day tomorrow full of vitality. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.